The galaxy was vast and filled with species of every imaginable shape, size, and form. Some were beautiful, others were strange, and some were considered, at least by conventional standards, ugly. Among the many races spread across the stars, one of the most powerful was the Verati, an ancient, proud species known for their breathtaking beauty, intelligence, and grace. The Verati ruled several star systems, and their society was built on a strict hierarchy where appearance and social status were everything. In Verati culture, beauty was revered. The perfect symmetry of facial features, radiant skin, and elegant posture were considered the ultimate marks of a person's worth. Those who failed to meet these standards were often cast aside, dismissed, and sometimes even shunned. But for all their beauty, the Verati were not without their flaws. The pressure to meet their society's impossible standards created an environment of cruelty, where those who didn't conform were made to feel worthless. Lira was born to the Verati, but from the moment she took her first breath, she was different. Unlike the other Verati, who were born with flawless features and striking beauty, Lira's appearance was unconventional. Her face was uneven. Her skin was not the luminous glow of the Verati elite, and her frame lacked the elegance that was the hallmark of her species. From a young age, Lira was made aware of her differences, and with each passing year, she was reminded that she would never be accepted into Verati society. Her father, a powerful and influential member of the Verati ruling class, could not bear the shame of having such an imperfect daughter. He kept her hidden from public view, ashamed of her appearance. The Verati men, who were quick to judge and often cruel in their assessments of others, refused to bond with her, dismissing her as unworthy of their time. Lira was cast aside, labeled a failure, and left to wander the halls of her family's estate in solitude. But Lira wasn't just ugly to them. She was rebellious. As she grew older, she developed a fiery spirit, a refusal to conform to the rigid rules of her society. She despised the beauty-centric world she lived in and rejected the idea that her worth should be defined by her appearance. She knew she was more than her physical flaws, but in a world where beauty was everything, her intelligence and spirit meant nothing. No one would ever dare to bond with her, for to do so would be to risk their own reputation. In a world where appearances defined everything, Lira was nothing but a misfit. And yet, she carried herself with a quiet defiance, an unspoken hope that one day she might find someone who could see beyond her appearance and understand the real her. That day came when Lira found herself exiled from her home planet of Verati Prime. After yet another failed attempt to bond with a Verati male, she had defied her father's orders and publicly rejected the societal norms that dictated her life. Her rebellion had become too much for the ruling council to ignore, and in the end, they decided to send her away to a barren, remote planet where she could live in isolation, far from the eyes of the Verati elite. Lira's exile took her to a desolate world, a planet known for its extreme conditions, half frozen, half scorched by a relentless sun. It was a place where few ventured and fewer still chose to settle. The perfect punishment for a rebellious daughter who refused to conform. As she roamed the planet, bitter and angry, Lira found herself drawn to a military outpost on the outskirts of the desolate land. The humans had recently begun to explore this part of the galaxy, and Lira, feeling more and more like a stranger in her own world, hoped that perhaps the humans might be different. It was there, at that outpost, that she first encountered Sergeant Mark Williams, a human soldier assigned to guard the station. Mark was unlike any of the Verati males she had known. He was tall, strong, and rugged, but it was his demeanor that caught her attention. Unlike the men of her own species, who would have judged her at first glance, Mark seemed to look beyond her appearance. He didn't stare at her uneven features, nor did he recoil from her. Instead, he treated her like a person, a fellow being, worthy of respect. And while she didn't expect it, Lira found herself intrigued by this human. At first, their interactions were few. Lira, wary of the world she had been exiled to, kept to herself, her rebellious attitude still intact. She had no interest in bonding with anyone, certainly not a human. But Mark didn't back down. He didn't push her, but he never left her alone either. Slowly, over the days, Lira found herself drawn to him. He wasn't perfect, but there was a quiet strength in his presence that made her feel something she hadn't felt in a long time, valued. One evening, after a particularly harsh encounter with a group of human officers who mocked her alien appearance, Mark took Lira aside. She was ready to snap, to lash out, but Mark simply held up a hand to stop her. "You don't have to fight," he said gently, his voice calm. "Not with them. Not with me." Lira's temper flared, but Mark's words, simple as they were, cut through her anger. She realized in that moment that for the first time someone was listening to her. Not just her words, but her pain, her frustration. "You don't understand," she muttered, her voice barely a whisper. "They all hate me. No one sees me for who I am." Mark stepped closer, his gaze steady and unwavering. "I don't care about how you look, Lira. I care about who you are. And that's enough for me." In that moment, everything changed. Lira had been so used to rejection, to being judged, that she didn't know how to handle Mark's kindness. She had never been loved for who she was, not for the Verati who she was supposed to be, but for the real person inside her. His words, simple yet profound, began to erode the walls she had built around herself. She found herself opening up to him, telling him her story, the years of rejection, the loneliness, and the pain. Mark listened without judgment, and in his eyes, she saw something she had longed for, acceptance. For the first time in her life, someone saw her for who she was, not for her flaws, not for the image she was supposed to project. Days turned into weeks, and Lira found herself spending more and more time with Mark. They trained together, shared stories, and grew close. Lira's icy exterior began to melt, and with each passing day, she felt more and more connected to him. Mark didn't see her as the ugly alien girl she had been branded. He saw her as an individual, a woman with strength, intelligence, and heart. Their bond deepened, and one evening, after a particularly difficult mission where Mark had saved her from an ambush, they shared a quiet moment alone. Mark, exhausted and bruised, took Lira's hand, his touch gentle. "I told you before, I don't care what they think," he said softly. "I care about you." Lira's heart raced. She had never imagined this: love, acceptance, and respect. In that moment, she realized that she had found someone who saw her for who she truly was. With Mark's unwavering support, Lira began to believe in herself again. She was no longer the ugly, rebellious alien girl in the eyes of others. To Mark, she was a strong and capable woman, worthy of love and respect. And when the time came for her to leave the planet, Lira made a choice. She chose to stay, not just with Mark,